You've spent a lot of time searching shelters and finally find the perfect pet. But when you get that new friend home, there's some issues. Coming up, we're joined by Dr. Sally Foote, who will pass along some ways to teach your pet some proper etiquette when joining a new home. That's next on this episode of the Paw Report.
Finding a solution for your pet's behavior problem can be confusing. Dr. Sally J. Foote helps you help your pet. Private consultation and resources are available at drsallyjfoote.com. Foote and Friends, better bond, better behavior.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
And thanks for joining us for this edition of the Paw Report. We are joined again by our special friend, Dr. Sally Foote, joining us in studio for this episode. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Foote.
Hi.
And, before we launch into a very informative episode on shelter dogs and some things do's and don'ts, I guess, if you will, you've kind of taken a different career path since the last time you and I chatted on the Paw Report set. What are you doing these days?
Well, I owned Okaw Veterinary Clinic for 30 years in Tuscola, Illinois, and with ownership of that and developing the behavior niche, in the general practice, I was also getting a lot of opportunity to speak and educate at veterinary conferences, because behavior is not a part of our general curriculum, but it is such an important part, of what we experience or need to help, the pet owning public with. And so I was finding myself in kind of a position of doing a lot of speaking and traveling while still trying to manage the general practice and doing the behavior practice. And it was not easy to try to find associates, to come on board. And I thought, it's a really wonderful community. Maybe someone would be interested in buying the general practice, that I could focus on speaking, educating, writing, and still do behavior consults. So wonderfully, Dr. Kyla Coons, who practiced up in Savoy, Illinois, saw my notice in the Illinois State Veterinary Medical Association and came down and worked things out. And so Dr. Coons bought the practice, Okaw Veterinary Clinic, in September of 2018. And she has the practice and is doing an awesome job, a wonderful job. It's still a low stress handling certified practice. They still follow all the principles of making it nice to go to the vet. And then I do speaking and writing. I have a new website with a lot of online courses, not only for veterinary staff and veterinary professionals, but also for pet owners that they can take to learn about preventing noise fears in their pets or litter box problems. I also have a lot of handouts and things like that. And I still do behavior consults, and I'm using video chat. So I really embarked
as everybody else is
telehealth.
these
Yes,
days.
that's what we're in now, the whole telehealth world.
So speaking of behavior, that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're really going to focus on, I'm thinking about going to a shelter to adopt a new dog or cat for my family. But, even before you get to that commitment of, I'm going to go to the shelter and get a dog or a cat, a potential pet owner needs to do their homework.
Right. I think it's most important when we say do their homework, or your homework, is frankly, I think it's really most important for you to think about what lifestyle you have and what lifestyle you're going to maintain when you have this pet. So when we talk about dogs, it's really important that dogs get out and get walked every day. One of the good things about being in the COVID shutdown is I've never seen so many dogs walked, and it's been wonderful. Yet a lot of people may not be thinking of that. And if they're thinking, wow, this Great Dane that looks like he's available for adoption, it's being a great dog, it's a bit different to, physically be walking a Great Dane than to be walking a Chihuahua. And so, as I say, typically all dogs need a minimum of 1 minute of walking per pound of body weight a day. So if I have a Labrador I've adopted that's 70 pounds, I need to, maybe it's broken up into 2 or 3 walks, but still, I need to make it a part of my lifestyle to take 3 20-minute walks with that dog a day, because in the yard is not enough exercise, it's not enough smelling different smells, seeing different sights, and what we call mental enrichment. So that's one part of the homework. Of course, how many hours a day do you work? Are you away from home? Are you at home? Okay, because again, they're going to need some, not just play, but these routines, and that sort of thing. And of course, then some of the financial considerations. Do you have enough money if it's a long-haired, say, dog that needs grooming to get their hair cut every 6 weeks? Think about the cost of that, the cost of the food, what their veterinary, annual cost might be. So those are some of the factors to really think about.
When you get to the shelter, you've discussed everything that you've just talked about, and you decide, yes, I'm still on board. You get to the shelter. What are some things you should look at? I mean, is it a go from area to area and pick out the cutest, the biggest, the smallest, the fluffiest? I mean, I know that sounds trivial, but sometimes that's
honestly
goes into a decision.
Frankly, there have been many surveys done by the ASPCA and these sheltering organizations, and the driving decision maker for people is the color of the animal and what they look like. And honestly, it's not the best way to decide, but I think that's part of the emotional connection. People come in already thinking, I want a calico cat. And they pick the calico cat, not thinking about those other things we just talked about. So what you should look for at the shelter is that when you contact the shelter, you go in and you say, hey, I'd really like to look at pets, and consider adoption. The shelter should have some kind of a questionnaire or some kind of a interview or some kind of a process where they're going to ask you about your lifestyle, your past history. They want a referral on you, and these are all for very good reasons. Because once they get that pet placed with you, they want that pet to have its forever home. They want it to be a good placement, So that's going to be the first thing. In a way, I say, I want to know that shelter is interviewing you more than you're interviewing them. Then the second thing would be that when you go through, say, to see the pets, or there's a kind of what they call a meet and greet room. It might be a room where they bring the pet in to meet you, that the staff people who are bringing the pet in really seem to know about the daily routine of that pet, any past history, like why was the pet brought to the shelter. Sometimes we don't always know that because families or people who are surrendering a pet don't always tell the whole story, don't always tell the truth. And even in a sense, that's good to know. Like, we don't really know why the family wouldn't tell us, but what we know here is, and thirdly, if that shelter has screened for any kind of not only physical, health problems like fleas or ticks, but also there can be some screening done to check to see if there's any food guarding issues or if the pet shows any signs of anxiety, and what they have done to help improve that, because you have to maintain that when you now bring them into your home.
What are some of the most common behavioral problems when you're dealing with a dog that you might have adopted?
Really, in order of what we see as most frequent is a dog who is aggressive on another housemate dog. So we have 2 dogs in the home, and the dogs are squabbling or fighting or over rowdy, and maybe we had a near bite, if not actual bite, on the other dog in the home. A dog who is maybe nearly bitten, maybe they have bitten once, but usually it's more like the near bites and almost bites to another person. And it's usually like the owner or a family member, or maybe somewhat frequent visitors around that dog's life. The third one would be separation anxiety. And that's really very common. And then the fourth one being house training problems. But honestly, we see house training now is like the lowest, least frequent, issue, or maybe it's an issue along with the others. In cats, it's typically housemate fighting with the other cat that then led to other anxiety problems like not using the litter box or not using the litter box. Those are the 2 for our kitties.
So I guess now we need to talk about what should we do. And you write books on this, but we do only have 15 minutes, so maybe we can do just the little rundown of some pointers that we can give to folks out there. So we'll start with anxiety, or maybe start with aggression, since that was the one that you kind of hit on first.
Sure.
So what can we do if we discover that our new pet is aggressive?
You know, what I really think is best is, let's assume they have this problem when they come in, instead of waiting for a problem to happen. And when I say let's assume they have this problem, then the second thing is, let's set the home up for success. Let's set the home up to prevent what we call the triggers, you know, the reasons, right, the irritants that for this dog tend to have them brew up and become aggressive over these common situations, like over food, over beds, over toys, or say unknown people coming over. So for dogs, I have a handout on my website. It's called like the top 10 ways to add a dog to your home. And what that is it says these 10 different steps are things such as all the dogs are going to be fed separately. Do not feed out of a common bowl. That you're going to set them up on a meal time so food is not sitting out all day. This prevents the competition over food. That we're going to maintain those walks for each dog and animal so they're getting enough exercise and enrichment. There's a couple of other resources like the ladder of aggression and a body language chart about anxiety to say post those up in the home, and whenever you see your dog looking like this, just think, I get my dog away from it, or get whatever just came in the room or happened away from my dog, to reduce the anxiety. And then make note of what that is and tell your veterinarian. Because and in this case, it might be telling the shelter, hey, I'm starting to see this. You didn't say anything at the shelter. Oh, gee, we didn't know he was afraid of thunderstorms because you never heard him in the shelter, okay? But at least then keep the communication up with the shelter, because there may have been some routines or rituals in the shelter that were done that helped that dog to be less anxious, you know, have that very, let's just call it a steady life, that prevented a lot of the rebubbling up of aggression or anxiety. And that may not have been clearly communicated to the new home, or the new home thought, well, we don't need to do that in the new home, that was in the shelter, but really they do. So that's that feedback to the shelter, and that's what really helps to prevent problems. Here's just a couple little isms, if you will. You know, I always like to tell my clients and remind people things like a growl is a bite that hasn't connected yet.
Good point.
Can't tell you how many people, oh, he's fine, he's just growling. No, he's not fine. Oh, yeah, he is. Oh, no, he's not fine. His growl is warning you he's getting ready to bite you. So what's happening here? Are you reaching in his food bowl? Is the other dog getting in front of the food bowl? He's warning. He's going to go to bite if nothing stops what he sees as a threat. Mm-hmm. Because he's telling you, because that's all he's got left. And that's what the ladder of aggression handout, that makes that very clear. But that's one ism. Let a dog and his bone alone, or leave a dog and his bone alone. Don't mess with the animals when they're eating or they have toys. You call the animal away, reward them, and then take the toy away. Can't tell you how many times people have been bitten or almost bitten for reaching in. Or we have, again, 2 dogs in the home, and they're just all playing around on their toys. They just like to growl at each other. They're actually competing over toys. We're leading up to a big fight, you know. That kind of thing. That's an ism. And let sleeping dogs lie. Let sleeping dogs and sleeping cats lie. Do not hug your pets when they're sleeping. It's not cute. It looks cute, but it's not cute. They're sleeping. They want to be left alone. Startle aggression is a type of aggression. Mm-hmm. And that's when they're sleeping, and all of a sudden, like, whoa, and then they turn and bite, dog and cat. And when the animal bites somebody, that breaks the bond. That's when you're calling me to have them put down, or they're going to be surrendered because they can't make that decision. And then it increases anxiety in the home because now the animal can't sleep without thinking he's going to be hugged.
Humans worried that they're going to constantly be.
And then humans don't realize what happened there. So anyway, these are just some of the rules for harmony, especially with bringing a new pet into the home.
Now, how long, is it a forever thing? So if you think that you have a dog that might be, people term it as aggressive or doesn't like certain things, is it a behavior that can be changed, or is it a behavior that you're going to have to accommodate to for the life of your pet?
It may be both. Okay, let's just have an example of my dog doesn't like it when people she doesn't know look her right in the face and want to reach to pet her. Okay, so it's that coming like straight at her face and like, oh, what a pretty dog, like this, right? My dog will be like, and then her eyes get big, her ears go back, and then actually she may jump up, and that all happens very quickly, which is normal. Okay, dogs go quickly through these body language showing anxiety and then can go up to lunging within split seconds, literally. So for my dog, in my case, we've been able to work with her for regular people who visit, which aren't family members, right? So maybe like a relative or something that comes over once a week, tossing her rewards as they come in, where her first wariness quickly dissolves because she learns. She's made that connection. That's the training. The term is desensitization and counterconditioning. And she's got the benefit of some pheromones and different things to help her with that too. Yet, when I go out, say, in public, I might be on, I don't know, a hike or something like that, and somebody walking by gets that, oh, what a cute dog. I immediately step in front of her because I know, no, this is the situation where she will do that because you're too new. You know what I mean? She has, and even if I have treats, it's like you're going to come on, you're moving too quickly and she doesn't know you at all. And so therefore, I need to just block this from happening to her. I need to use avoidance. So sometimes it's, rather than one or the other, it can depend on the situation which one you use.
What about guarding resources, the anxiety, some of the things, what we can do in those circumstances too? You hit on a few, but...
Resource guarding, the best thing to do is to limit the resources, meaning we are not going to have food laying around all day, because then it becomes instead of trying to train the dog to not guard the food, because you can never eliminate aggression. You can never eliminate anxiety. It's always managed. And management comes from what triggers it up, and from those triggers, can you eliminate the triggers? If you can, they don't need them in their life, why have them, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you can't eliminate them, can you decrease how frequent they are around them and how intense they are, because that will also decrease then the anxiety that's leading to the guarding. And once you've decreased, if they have to learn to live with some amount of it, that's where you work on the desensitization and counterconditioning, because you're at a lower mental state of anxiety. So in the case of like food is not left out all day. It may be fed twice a day, but you're in the kitchen and Bosco's in the bathroom mm-hmm. and Fluffy's over here in the living room, and I sit down and I have my cup of coffee for 20 minutes. And when we're done, I take up the food from the one who's like out here near me. I remove the food bowl, and then I'll remove the food bowl I'll call the other one away, remove the food bowl, and the third one that ate in the bathroom, I'll remove their food bowl. Then they all could be together. And that's how we manage it. Mm-hmm. Because even if it's only 1 out of 100 or 1 out of 1,000 times, that if the three of them were all eating around each other with the food bowls, that they start doing the looking and staring at each other and then they aggress, that one time, they may go to biting each other severely and, injuring each other. And when they do that, it just kind of reminds them, if you will, of that aggressive behavior and that they need to aggress. So can 3 dogs in a household live eating totally separately? Yes. Mm-hmm. So it becomes your lifestyle, if you will, choice then to, okay, I set the foods down in 3 separate places, give them 20 minutes to eat, I take it away, and we're done. That's how it is.
Another behavior I'd like to talk about, which I didn't bring up, was destructive behavior. That could be another one where you find them chewing, destroying, chewing on furniture, whatever it may be.
Why are they chewing on the furniture? Why are they doing this? What has been going on in their life? What happens right before they go to chewing on it? For the most part, a lot of times that's frustration behaviors. In other words, they're not getting enough exercise. They're not getting enough playtime. They are bored. Sometimes we also see it if there may be intestinal upset, kind of like how teething, helps mm-hmm. to soothe if there's an upset stomach, or any kind of like GI kind of intestinal pain. So again, it's not just a training issue sometimes, especially if you've done things like, well, I got the food puzzles. We are taking them out for walks. Tell your veterinarian. Tell them my dog is chronically licking at the floor and he's unraveled half of the thread on the edge of the mm-hmm. carpeting. Actually, the University of Montreal College of Veterinary Medicine did do a survey and found that about half of these dogs that were compulsively licking objects had significant intestinal inflammation that was not so bad to cause like weight loss, you know, and really marked physical signs. But many of them improved with going on a hypoallergenic diet, like an antacid, and reducing the intestinal inflammation. It reduced the behavioral sign of that licking and chewing.
You feel like you just got some things licked.
Rules and regimens.
And we don't want this stuff to come back or rehappen again. Right. What can we do?
Okay, so the first thing I would turn to that shelter employee and say, you tell me exactly what this dog's schedule was like every day, because I need to mimic that in the new home as best I can. If at 8 o'clock in the morning the staff came in and they let him go out to the bathroom and they put their food down and gave him 20 minutes to eat, then an hour and a half later the volunteer came in and took him for a walk, and then at noon they got a food puzzle, et cetera, you need to follow that same kind of plan, because that ritual, you know, those routines and rituals are what give predictability to life. And that predictability greatly decreases the anxiety of what's going to happen next and what's going to go on here, you know. Then secondly, just look to see what helps to keep your pet like happy, you know. If it's like, wow, we took a hike at Fox Ridge State Park and man, he slept really good, like he hasn't slept, okay. You need to take him on a hike.
Needs exercise.
Right. And then thirdly, download off my website, you know, those handouts on, you know, to check the body language so you can tell. Because animals tell us how they feel by how they literally move their body, their expressions, and how they act. And reach out to your veterinarian, reach out to the shelter again. When you start to notice these things early, they don't just go away. They can get better with time, because animals now is learning maybe some good things in this new home. I have more space to sleep. I am getting more walks. And that's, you know, reducing the anxiety. It's not really just happening on its own. It's because you're providing what this animal needs. So if it's not getting better, reach out early. Please don't wait and try to wait it out.
It's not an overnight fix.
Yeah.
And I think what people have to remember is when they bring an animal into their home, it's a lifetime commitment. So are you saying that all of these things that you've talked about today are things that have to be practiced continually? I mean, it's not for a week, it's not for 2 weeks, it's not for a month. If you're going to put food bowls in different places, that's just not for a week, it's for
right, that's what I meant. It's your lifestyle.
Yes.
It's how it is, yeah. Once you get in the new routine, it's not difficult. It really isn't that hard. And I guess being a veterinarian, I also try to relate, how does this benefit the health of the pet? And also benefit then the owner to be able to tell me about their pet's health. So to now have like 3 feeding areas in 3 different places where you know how much Fluffy is really eating, and Bosco, and say Jojo, the 3rd dog. And you know there has been no switcheroo of the bowls like you get in a lot of multi-dog households. So now Fluffy isn't eating all of her food. You're going to be calling me right up going, whoa, Fluffy's not eating her food. And I say, and I know it's Fluffy not eating her food because I'm feeding them separately. Mm-hmm. And maybe even you tried a few things to entice Fluffy, like heating the food up or adding a little canned food, and she's still not eating. Now that tells me a lot about their health. And now you can more accurately tell me that, because we didn't get the switcheroo of when Fluffy walked away with food uneaten. Here quickly came in Bosco to gobble it up while I had stepped away, and I think Fluffy ate it. Mm-hmm. You know, so that I try to relate how these steps not only help with their behavior, but it helps with their physical health, and for you, the owner, to be able to share with me and to help your pet out, because they can't talk to us.
In the last minute, Dr. Foote, you have a pet owner that's just ready to give up.
Yeah.
And that can be tough because they're at their wits' end. They've shed a lot of tears, but there is hope. Mm-hmm. And give them some advice before we leave here today.
Okay, that is a tough spot. And as one woman said to me, "You're our last hope, Dr. Foote." And I said, you know what, I think I was changing the name of the clinic to the Last Hope Clinic. I'm not kidding about that. And so oftentimes where I start with clients is the first thing I focus on is that home environment. What can we immediately change in the home? Because there's usually something in the home that's aggravating this behavior. And so what can we immediately make different that is not hard to do? right? So it's got to be easy, that will make an immediate benefit. It may not be the whole story, but we're going to make some progress within like 24 to 48 hours. And so with the assessments that I do, I'm able to determine those important, triggers to whether it's aggression and anxiety. And honestly, if you do these 3 things, we're going to check back in 3 days. So that's what gives people hope, is to know that, okay, I don't have to, you're not going to give me a 20-page, 20-point list to have to do. No, we're going to start on these 3 things. It's our first baby step. And so for the example of dogs fighting, once you separate out the feeding, a lot of clients, they thought, I'm like, look, all I want you to do is this. All right, let's just start here. A lot of clients within 3 days are saying, oh my gosh, this is the first time we've had a night where the dogs weren't squabbling over everything. Like, right, because you now removed a source of competition you didn't realize was that's been sitting out in front of them every single day. Mm-hmm. And that one change is making a big difference. And now we're on our path. So sometimes that's that little, the 1 or 2 things that can make the change, that shows them that A, it doesn't have to be terribly complicated, and B, it is doable.
Well, hopefully we made a difference in some pet owners' lives due to this episode of the Paw Report. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's good to see you again.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us for this edition of the Paw Report. I'm your host, Kelly Goodwin, and we'll see you next time.
Dave's Decorating Center is a proud supporter of the Paw Report on WEIU. Dave's Decorating Center features the Mohawk Smart Strand Silk Forever Clean Carpet. Dave's Decorating Center, authorized Mohawk Color Center in Charleston.
The Paw Report on WEIU is supported by Rural King, America's farm and home store, livestock feed, farm equipment, pet supplies, and more. You can find your store and more information regarding Rural King at ruralking.com.
Fetcher's Pet Supply on the north side of the Charleston Square, serving the EIU community since 1991. Fetcher's welcomes all pets on a leash, is open 7 days a week, and offers made in the USA Food. Pet supplies for dogs, cats, reptiles, and fish. Fetcher's Pet Supply in Charleston.
Finding a solution for your pet's behavior problem can be confusing. Dr. Sally J. Foote helps you help your pet. Private consultation and resources are available at drsallyjfoote.com. Foote & Friends, better bond, better behavior.